started.
Welcome, everybody. I know you've all been through several classes already today.
Yeah.
Anybody here that's not a member of the OIADA that should be? I'm sure you've all heard that spiel several times already today, so we won't bore you with that. Allison Harrison, compliance, something we all need, something near and dear to all of our hearts. Got a lot of information. With no further ado, I'll let you get started.
All right. Hi everyone, I'm Allison Harrison. I am the general counsel of the OIADA. I also have my own law firm. We concentrate on supporting car dealers. Just a quick background, my dad was a dealer, my uncle was a dealer. So if you have ever seen my cousin Vinny, where she's on the stand giving the whole recitation, that's me, but just the dealership. I know compliance can be really dry, but I promise you I will try and keep it as exciting as possible. We've actually had a number of changes that impact car dealers this year. Some good, some not so good. Really quickly, I'm not your attorney right now. Those are just general updates on statutory changes and regulation changes. If you have specific questions to your dealership, find me afterwards. If you have questions that you just want to ask right now, hypotheticals, right? What if my neighbor? So those are great ways to phrase them, so I can try and answer them. All right, so the first one. Ohio is getting an upgrade to our dock fee. All right, Senate Bill 94 passed this summer. It allows the dock fee to be increased, right? We've had $250 for what feels like eons. What?
Forever.
Forever, yeah, it feels like forever. It is actually getting increased. It is effective October 24th, but it is based on CPI. We are waiting for the DMV to give us the new fee. So it is the $250 plus CPI to some calculation. I tried to do rough math. I'm a lawyer, so the math is probably not correct, but it's somewhere around $315 is I think where we're going to end up at. The DMV will be publishing that here in the next couple of weeks because the 24th is like real soon. It will be readjusted. So in September every year, they should be releasing calculations that are effective for the following year. The upgrade that we get at the end of 24 will be for 24 and 25, and then readjust in 26.
Is it October 26th, did you say?
October 24th is when this becomes effective, but we still do not have a calculation from the DMV. If you want to do your own calculation, you can, but I think that's terrifying. Because if you are off by a penny, there are consumer protection issues, you violated the law, it seems like a horrible idea. Wait until the DMV publishes it. I am certain as soon as it's published, Wendy will send out a news blast that says, you want to make $100 more, call me and I'll tell you how. And then she'll get you to be a member of the OIADA and then tell you what the document is. All right. We also have an Ohio House Bill 195. This passed this year. It made it illegal, well, I should say, it created a new adaptive motor vehicle dealer license. And it restricts selling adaptive motor vehicles to those that hold the adaptive license and new car dealers. It means used car dealers cannot sell adaptive motor vehicles right now. What is an adaptive? It's a very long definition. If it has a ramp, a power chair, those things, generally speaking, that's going to be adaptive. If you have a question, does this qualify as an adaptive vehicle? Call OIADA, we'll get you an answer. 1 second, really quickly, adaptive vehicles don't have a VIN identifier. It's really hard for this to be enforced. But I am telling you, if they see it, they will, if the state sees it, they will penalize you. As much as I can tell you, there is no way to track it, but it is out there as a prohibition.
So hypothetically,
Yeah.
hypothetically, some used car dealers have bought probably about 4 or 5 hypothetical wheelchair vans over the years since the turn of the century. So hypothetically, said used car dealer cannot now buy and sell.
Technically, they can buy them, but they can't sell them. So I mean, really, you can't buy them either.
That's been what, since August?
August of this year.
But we're working on getting that fixed.
Yes. So they wanted to provide the adaptive license so that the folks that do the modifications to make them adaptive vehicles can sell them. The law, I think, was written very sloppily because at some points it says dealer and then other places it says new dealer. And so that's where we just have, I think, a poor passage of legislation.
Can we get the adaptive license, like right now?
You can apply for an adaptive license. I don't think there's a restriction on that. I would be concerned about making sure it's compatible with the used dealer license and being very transparent with the B&B.
I would just suggest to contact your local
Yes.
senator or whoever.
Yeah, anyone who's in the state house, call them, tell them that this is a dumb rule and you want to remove it. Because I know that, one, it's not fair to the folks that need adaptive vehicles, right? You don't, most folks are not born needing an adaptive vehicle. Something happens to them and now they need one. And so they have a perfectly good car that they need to trade in and buy an adaptive vehicle, and they don't necessarily need a new one because that price points are astronomically high. And then the other piece of this is you can't take it out on trade really. And so you may have someone who passed away who's getting rid of the adaptive vehicle. Well, you can't help them, right? And so it's super important. Call your congressperson, call your representative in Ohio, because we would like to see this change. Because it's not fair to anyone who needs an adaptive vehicle, and it's not fair to you guys either.
Oh, by the way, we've had a lot of out-of-state inspections, we're going to Michigan buying, so.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, so you, I mean, people can go out of state and buy them for a used dealer where you're getting, you know, a reasonably priced adaptive vehicle. So, yeah.
Can, hypothetically again, can a private individual sell them or not?
Yeah, there's no prohibition. If you're under 5 vehicles, you don't need a dealer license of any type, right? It's under 5.
Yeah.
Over 5 is when you need a license at the state level, and there's a lot of federal requirements that kick in after 5 units a year. Any other questions on doc fee or adaptive? Also, in House Bill 95, signing these documents offsite. I am certain that no one here has ever had their customer sign their documents offsite before. No. Yeah, no one ever. It is now got the blessing of the legislature that you can have the consumer sign their paperwork offsite. It doesn't mean you can engage in a sale offsite, but let's say you have a customer come in, they know what they want, you're working on the financing, you say, hey, just, you know, go home, we'll come to you with the paperwork. Okay, now that's legal, or it's a mail situation, they're buying it out of state and you're mailing them the documents. Technically, it was illegal until August of this year.
Not digital yet, no e-signing.
You can do e-signing. All of the law is like archaic. It doesn't account for technology, which is why this prohibition on signing off site has been so problematic. Because technically under the old law, if they signed from their house, they were signing off site. New law just catches up with the times of you can sign on your phone anywhere.
Starting August 4th.
Yeah, so like during COVID, everyone was signing off site. I don't think anyone was thinking they weren't. We just now have to finally have the statute updated for doing that. What everyone's
My
been
neighbor who was doing it before came to trouble for it.
correct. Yes.
You're good to go as of August 4th.
Yes. Yeah. So now moving forward, you don't have to. We used to say, you know, you were the last one to sign it. You signed it at the dealership, so that's where the sale took place. Now they can officially sign it anywhere.
So, I'm sorry, just to follow. When the inspector comes in, like to inspect the records, they pull out the record. I mean, I can produce PDFs that will e-sign. That would be sufficient enough for them.
Yeah. Yeah. We've allowed e-signing for a while, which is why this like prohibition of signing off-site never made any sense.
Not the inspector that can buy from the water, they said, no, my signature is not enough. They will not allow you to do anything else.
If you have issues with inspectors, call OID. We run into this issue where inspectors, I would say make up things, but they have interpretations that do not comply with what's generally enforced. And that is why being a member of the association is so great. We can make some phone calls to figure out what's going on. Any other questions? Again, this doesn't let you display vehicles off-site. It doesn't mean you can do anything else. It's really just a signing document. Okay, that is all the new stuff in Ohio. We still have all of the same stuff in Ohio, which is no unfair, deceptive acts or practices, all that good stuff that I've been preaching to y'all for a while. At the federal level, we have the Corporate Transparency Act. Who has heard about corporate transparency or beneficial ownership? All right, about half, that's good. The other half, let me me tell you. So there is a Corporate Transparency Act. It was enacted, several years ago, and it's been delayed in implementation. The reason that it was passed was to cut down on, it was pressure from foreign countries of, we have bad actors in the maritime, we don't know how to hold them accountable because y'all don't have registration. That is what the beneficial ownership report is. It's the registration for any LLC, any corporation, any sole proprietor who acts as a business in the U.S. So everyone who existed, any entity that existed before January 1st of this year has time. You have until the end of the year to file. I swear this used to say you had 90 days for new entities to file, but I was re-looking at it this morning and it said new entities have 30 days to file, which is an interesting twist that I don't recall seeing. So anyhow, if you create a new entity, as soon as you file your LLC and your EIN, you will also probably need to do the beneficial ownership report. This has been challenged. Okay, it's in, I believe, Arkansas or Alabama. Yeah, thank you. I'm like, it's in the South and it starts with an A. They challenged it, and the appellate or the district court found that it was not constitutional as to a very small group of people. And so a lot of folks saw that decision and said, well, I don't have to comply because we've got this ruling. Incorrect. The ruling only applies to the plaintiffs in that class, not to everyone across the country. So, okay, beneficial ownership is someone who directly or indirectly exercises substantial control over the company, or has ownership of at least 25%. So this is most of your owners of companies are going to be impacted. It includes individuals, trusts, corporations. So it's a pretty broad brush enforcement, and it's enforced through the Department of Treasury, aka the IRS. It's the Department of Treasury. It is who oversees all of this, which is also who oversees your taxes. So, super fun. The exemptions, publicly traded. Anyone here publicly traded? Yeah, no, okay. Large companies with more than 20 full-time employees and over $5 million in revenue. I don't know the ruling on that, but I'm going to guess that they believe that you are big enough that the IRS already has a lot of knowledge on you. It's the small guys. Where this becomes, I think, problematic is how many of you may have a company that owns your real estate, and then your dealership license, and your dealership pays the holding company rent. You have two reporting entities, potentially. And then that LLC that you set up to own that one piece of real estate that you plan to do something with, but like haven't really got around to it, just sitting there. That's a reporting entity. And so thinking through all these things can just lead to a lot of reporting. The reporting is not difficult, at least from a legal standpoint, from all the legal stuff we have to do every day. By and large, it's your name, address, phone number, copy of your driver's license, your passport, and I think social security number. And then poof, it goes off to the feds. And you do it once and you're good. Let me finish my spiel. If you have a change in ownership, you have to update the Department of Treasury.
You said they want a picture of your driver's license, or?
Yeah, they want you to scan it and upload it from there. Or passport.
Yeah, because I have to use the library, so.
Yeah.
Another question, what about a property, hypothetically, the property is held by a family trust, do they have to report?
Trusts don't have to report, and this is a very big kerfuffle in the estate planning space is who is your reporting entity? I don't have a clear answer. Who is the beneficial ownership? The estate planning community is trying to figure that out. Mark, do you have?
Typically it leads to trustee, and who's the ownership of the trust.
Yeah.
Is where it'll trickle down till it gets to that.
I would say, I think the common advice is trustee, but I think there's questions, are they really the beneficial owner, or is it really the beneficiary?
Yeah.
So,
that would
yes.
even count for like a house and stuff too?
If it's in a trust, if it's in an LLC, if it's in any entity besides a person's name that's not operating as a business. Yeah.
So, if there's like 50-50, both have to report?
Yep.
And then the trust company also has that. Oh, what about reinsurance?
The company? Is it in the US?
Almost all in Nicole will have to report. There's some exceptions that.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure reinsurance does, but the exceptions are what scare me, so talk to Sean.
You're better safe than sorry.
The
You won't
penalty,
get busted for over-reporting.
yeah,
And it's just a one-time report.
until change of ownership, yeah. The penalty for not reporting is something like $590 a day. A day. Yeah, so it's significant.
Is the association willing to help you file that report
Yeah, the association and myself would have help to support you getting that filed.
for a very small fee?
Yeah.
Less than $500 and some dollars a day.
The filing itself isn't hard, it's the determination of whether you have to or not, that's the legal analysis.
And I think my advice to anyone is if you think you remotely fall under the category of report, because the penalty for failure to report is so high. And if we think about this, Mark and I, or maybe Brett and I were talking about this. You have the IRS that has a bunch of new audit agents available to them based on some restructuring of the government. All the LLCs and trusts are filed with the state. Also, most of them have EINs. Let's just start going either in alphabetical order by state, or let's start going by numerical order based on EINs and find everyone who hasn't filed. It's not a hard lift for them to find non-reporters. So, any questions? I know I started exciting with doxy rates, and then we get to this, and you're gonna like the next slide even better. I know it.
Let me know.
Yeah, I know, right? Hey, at least these are updates. It's not the same stuff. Yeah. All right, the next one, the FTC CARS rule. It stands for Combating Auto Retail Scams. Anyone heard of the CARS rule? Yeah. Anyone think the CARS rule is completely stayed and we don't have anything to worry about? Okay, great, good, we're on the same page, let's get started quick. The CARS rule was supposed to go into effect this summer, and it got stayed. NADA and the TIADA filed suit, claiming it was an overreach, essentially what they were doing. The oral arguments were had this past week, which means a decision is forthcoming, but like everything in government, that doesn't happen fast. So we don't know whether it will stand on its own as the CARS rule, or whether the CARS rule will go away as it is labeled today. Okay, so what does the CARS rule kind of require? It prohibits misrepresentation. It has increased disclosures around payments. It has clear, informed consent on anything. It prohibits selling junk items and increases a record retention requirement. Sounds super easy, right? Yeah, it's nothing. Okay. Here's a list of prohibited misrepresentations. There are probably more, but this is what the FTC lists on their website as the specific prohibited misrepresentation. And if anyone wants the slide, I can send it to you, so you don't have to try and read your picture. But most of this, I would argue, is already likely enforced as an unfair and deceptive act or practice, either by a state AG or the FTC. However, they articulated it here. This one scares me because I do a lot in the sweepstakes world. You won $1 million, please come back, car. Oh wait, you won $5, right? We see those all the time at car dealerships, and that's going to be a huge, huge problem. This, when you start to do your tax incentives, hey, come, you got your tax return. Are you being very clear when you say, come, you redeem your tax return for a car, that you're not affiliated with the IRS, you have nothing to do with taxes, you're just suggesting that when they get that return, they spend it on a car. And there, I mean, I can go into detail on all of these. The rebate one typically doesn't impact used car dealers nearly as much as new car. But yeah, this is the list of prohibited items. Right. Okay. We're going to keep going down this fun journey of the CARS rule. Sorry. So the CARS rule requires that you give the offering price. What is the offering price? They define it as everything except for tax title registration. So if you are including your doc fee, that's got to be included now. Is there anything that you put on it that you cannot take off of it? You're going to have to put it in there. And it has to be, the offering price has to be provided anytime the consumer asks about a car, even if they don't ask about price. Hey Scott, I saw you got that BMW down there. Is that a X5?
It's $15,000.
Yeah, right. That's got to be the response, right? Is the price, even if they're just like, I was looking at that blue car.
It's $15,000.
Yeah, and so, while this doesn't seem like a lot, if you think about how many times people come on their lot and look at multiple vehicles every time they're doing that, you're going to have to give them the total sales price of every vehicle they have looked at. Yes. The other part about this too is if they come in via chat, if they come in via text, if they come in via email, you're gonna have to provide them with that disclosure.
So essentially, the first thing out of a sales representative's mouth has to be the price of the car, including the dock fee.
Where does that play in for negotiation? I mean,
Anytime you change the price, you just have to give them the total price,
again,
again. Where I think this is interesting, Ohio has so every state has a different unfair and deceptive actor practice statute, okay? Ohio very clearly already says whenever you list the sale price of a motor vehicle, you have to state everything that's included on it except for tax, title, license, and down. And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays in with the feds. If the CARS rule is truly vacated, that means we don't have enforcement under the specific CARS rule, but what we're seeing is at the federal and state level, the attorney generals are enforcing it already as if it's a thing, even though it's been stated. And so we will have to have the pathway forward. I think if the CARS rule truly is vacated, Ohio may be allowed to do plus dock fee because it's in our statute. But I'm giving you this disclosure now as we watch the CARS rule unfold. I would start, if I were you, telling everyone the price every time they ask. And if it's plus dock fee, then you need to say plus a $3.15 or whatever the new dock fee is. Because this rule technically isn't in effect, and I can defend you all day long if you go, this is the price plus dock fee, tax title, because that's what Ohio statute currently requires.
So on our website, we can also say that.
Yeah.
So our website right now, we do not have to, or.
I would, under the CARS rule, every time you have a car listed anywhere, anytime, you put it in a newspaper, you gotta have the price listed. You put it on your website, you have to have the price listed.
What is the call for price? Because it's so advertised.
I think you're gonna have problems because it's an advertisement for the vehicle. Okay. So this isn't any advertisement or any communication. That's where you're gonna have to list it, which is why if you have a price, call us for price, you're gonna have a problem because you have an advertisement on your website.
Well, and one of the things too that's required is you have to provide it in writing if it's asked for in writing.
Yeah.
So, but from a compliance perspective, a defending yourself perspective, right? If Allison's got to show up in court with, how are you gonna defend yourself? Well, I gave him the offering price if you're walking the lot with the sales guy. I gave the offering price. I said total was $15,000. He said, she said, that becomes pretty hard to prove, right? Where's the default gonna go? It's gonna go not to you. So you may wanna have something in writing anyway.
That's it. To Sean's point, I think as we move forward with this, just put everything in writing. Because most of what I end up litigating is, well, the sales guy told me, and then my sales guy's like, well, they never asked, so I didn't tell them, and it's a back and forth he said, she said. Well, I can sometimes win those cases, which is great. The amount you have to pay to win that case never makes any sense. And I say that as my job as a litigator, and I want you to pay me, but I am always transparent on that too. The other part that is, I think, a lot more challenging is anytime you talk about price payment, we're talking about payment, you're gonna have to provide all those disclosures that you see in the till box at the end of the sale. But that's every time. So if you have a customer come in and say, hey, I can afford $250 a month, can I get that purple car? You're gonna have to say, well, it's $250 a month, at 24.99% APR, and the total that you're gonna pay is this. Oh, heck, I can't do that. What about this one? Can I do $250 a month? And you're gonna say, yeah, it's $250 a month, but now I'm gonna need $3,000 up. Every time you do that negotiation, you're gonna have to have it in writing.
does everybody know what a TILA box is?
So, yeah. Does anyone not know the TILA box? Okay, great. When you do the retail installment contract, and you know there's like that square box that says, here's your APR, that's the TILA box, the truth in lending. And so it's down payment, number of periodic payments, APR, total that you're paying with interest if you follow the schedule.
I have a question. How do you, if a person is financing and you're going to, like, you're clicking on the multiple different lenders, are you required to produce multiple different boxes, and how does that?
Are you providing it to the customer?
I guess my question then maybe is, you have to take an application or before the customer even, I don't know, like how do you know before you get there?
So it's gonna be anytime you're offering it to the customer.
Yeah.
If you're doing internal numbers and it never goes to the customer and you're trying to figure out your math, you're not gonna have to produce that.
Yeah.
But anytime you tell the customer anything, you're also gonna have to back it up.
Yeah, and I don't know, we realized this recently, when we're having a meeting with our website provider, they have a box that they put out there that we think that gives like a guesstimate on prices, that kind of scares me.
It's terrifying under the cars rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna take away a lot of those estimate your payment kind of thing.
And when is this?
Okay, so it is being challenged in the courts right now, but I will tell you from going to FTC presentations and seeing what state AGs are doing, it's enforced right now. Just under, so the FTC, there's the FTC Act. The FTC Act allows the FTC to make enforcements for anything that's unfair, deceptive acts or practices. In the FTC Act, that's not really defined. It's kind of broad brush, how are we interpreting it? The CARS rule is to clarify what's an unfair, deceptive act or practice, kind of how it was presented. They're just enforcing it under, this is unfair, deceptive act or practice. CARS rules stayed, but we're not enforcing it under the specific CARS rule. We're enforcing it under UGAP, which is unfair and deceptive. And if there's any pushback to the FTC, what they do is they go, hey, state AGs, can you start enforcing this under your unfair and deceptive act or practice? And so it's not enforced right now, but it is.
And then if my neighbor were to get in trouble right now, what?
So this would, I would say from the state AG perspective, they look at what's the harm to the customer. There's a whole different like regulatory scheme for private actions versus the attorney general bringing suit, but hundreds of thousands of dollars if they could find the ETs to do this. Now,
The FTC's had about, what, 4 cases, I think, Allison, since the CARS rule
Yeah.
stayed, that they've taken against dealers now. I'll say 3 of them, very much like what the CFPB used to do when it first came online, like, we'll find something where we can absolutely bend you over the barrel, and you cannot win, right? So they've got you.
They're
They're
taking
gonna
the
put these
low-hanging
extra
fruit.
things on, that are all CARS rules based. They have a case that they filed, against Asbury, and Asbury's giving them the finger, like, we're going to the mat. So that one will be interesting to see what happens, 'cause
and the way they're doing this is low-hanging fruit. What's the easy stuff that we know slam dunk, we can say is unfair and deceptive, we're gonna win in any trial any day long, you know? And then they're gonna slowly, once they have that low-hanging fruit, that sets a precedent, we can continue to enforce that, and then we can get down to more granular issues under the CARS rule, how we want to enforce it. So it's, and really quick basis of how law works, we have statutes allow rules to be formed, so that's like the basis of regulatory scheme, and then we have case law. Case law is, hey, the statute and rule weren't all that clear, so we need to get a much more specific determination, because one side thinks this is what the law says, one side says this is what the law says, and then the judge issues a ruling and says, well, this is what the law says. And that precedent is then enforceable as if it were rule or statute, right? So it's kind of like the basis of our legal system, and so that's how the FTC is moving it forward, is through this precedent that they're getting with courts or with settlements, and they're making the settlements. I think they're judicial entries, like they're confessions of judgment essentially, or agreed entries, and so that's what they're setting precedent.
Well, some people would like market training during COVID and.
This is the FTC's attempt to get after bad actors. The attack from TIADA and NADA is, go after the bad actors. This is just making it more difficult for the good folks to do business. I think their study showed $1.1 billion of compliance costs will go into compliance with costs. Yeah, and I told Mark I would give him this pitch, and we all are terrified. Mark back there did a great job of helping to protect your assets from folks like the FTC. So talk to Mark if you have questions on that. But yeah, this stuff it's scary and it's here. That's the thing. We've kind of been saying, oh, we're going to stay it, and then we started to see these FTC actions, and we're like, what the heck, it stayed, but you're enforcing basically the CARS rule just under a different kind of regulatory
And this is
statute.
all front end, this is nothing on back end.
This is not back end. This is all customer facing. And you're gonna love, I'm gonna keep going, this just gets better. Once you agree on anything, on fees, this is especially for add-on products, your gas, your credit life, any of those fees that are not considered junk fees, which we'll talk about in a minute, you have to get their consent, in writing and orally, and what the FTC has said is that gas agreement doesn't qualify as consent. Yep, you need another piece of paperwork that says, this is what you're buying, this is, you know, what it is, and this is what you're gonna get out of it. You cannot use pre-filled forms, so like this says, what doesn't constitute express consent, and you'll have to tell them, you are buying gas. GAP will protect you if you destroy your car while the loan's there, and they'll take care of your loan. It is going to cost you this. And they have to verbally say, I agree. And then you're gonna have to give it to them again and again. Yeah.
And back to that whole evidence thing again.
And how are you
Start
gonna?
recording it?
Yeah, and
Record now.
I think, to me, you either have to record it or you have to have a written policy and training to your team about how every closing has to go. Because if you can show the bona fide error, I think you have defense, so it's not strict liability. I didn't see strict liability in it, Sean. So I think if you have a written policy and you provide training, you may not have to record, but the safest bet is to record. Now, here's what terrifies me. You have all been in closings. What else gets said in closing that then can create a consumer claim? Okay, so I feel like this is a lose-lose situation. Your closings are gonna have to be much more impersonal, and this is it. We're not talking about the car, we're just talking about the pricing. I need to get your approval, all this stuff. It's also gonna take a hell of a lot longer to sell the car. I know, aren't you all glad you came to my class? It's so uplifting.
Actually, yes.
Also in the junk fees, so nitrogen-filled tires, if there's not more nitrogen than there is in natural air, and these are the ones that they have specified. Service contracts that duplicate the coverage that you're getting from a manufacturer. I think that one's problematic because sometimes you manufacturer warranties that are void for some reason, so you don't know, and sometimes there is overlap. So just really check, are you selling something that's new enough that might be under manufacturer warranty? Rust proofing that doesn't prevent rust, add-ons that aren't used, oil changes on electric vehicles. I'm certain there's some folks that do that, please don't. Software audio subscriptions, if you sell them a Sirius XM and their car's next to XM, right? Like it doesn't have the capability, that's gonna be problematic. And then gap on vehicles with a low loan to value ratio. This one I think is really difficult because we don't define what's a low LTV. And so, and I was talking to Brett about a claim in Pennsylvania where they actually had a policy, here's our loan value, we don't have 100% penetration, it's actually quite low, we want to make sure that they're getting the value. And the Pennsylvania AG saying, no, that's unfair incentive. So the dealer, Brett told me was going to defend that pretty strongly, and I think they should. So I think if you are offering gap, this one specifically, make sure you have a written policy. What does that loan value ratio look like? Where are you offering it? If you have 100% gap penetration, you better only ever have $1,000 down and be financing $15,000 worth of vehicle, right? So making sure you have
And show some good loss ratios.
And so you want to make sure that you have a written policy to protect you, so that if anyone ever came in and said, hey, I'm gonna bring a claim against you for this car rule, or a consumer said, you sold me a useless product under Ohio's UDAP, you can pull up the evidence to say, no, I didn't.
If the customer sometimes asks for the gap, even though they're in a good equity position, as long as they sign and verbally agree and everything,
No.
is that okay, or is it just no?
I would just say I cannot include coverage in selling gap. If you want gap, here are a number of providers that you can call outside of the and then just get it out of you. Just let them do that themselves. Okay, the other horrible portion of this is the record retention requirement. You know how I talked about all those disclosures you had to give for every negotiation you had and every time you change the price? Keep that for 24 months. All of the videos that you're recording for closing, 24 months. All right, that is the end of this horror presentation. I'm sorry. I tried to start with the good stuff so you stayed longer. Yeah, all right. Does anyone have any other questions? And it doesn't have to be necessarily about the cards, it could be about something else. Wendy is gonna, I think, follow up with like a mass email on this stuff.
I do, but I'll approach it afterwards.
Okay, yep.
Do I have any partners on here?
Yes, Scott.
Is anybody following any of this?
It's a slow rollout because we had this messy, we're instituting it, well, now it's in court action, so we don't have to comply. Well, now we do because we're seeing it. And so we're gonna have to start. And I think if you are making an honest, good faith effort, you're going to be ahead of the pack. Which doesn't necessarily mean you're exempt from any action, but if you are trying your best, I'll defend you all day long and say this is an insane regulation and look what everything they've done to try to comply. Like, heck, I feel like the government half the time loses my documents after 12 months. So like they can't even held months before.
So, this is the, I get asked that question all the time, like, what should I be doing now? One thing that I would suggest is make it your service providers, your vendors problem, right? Because ultimately, there's gonna be a lot of things that they have to use for you. If you start those communications now, like, what are you doing to get, cars rule compliant, how are you gonna help me, and
Yeah.
you can demonstrate, again, if she shows up in court with some kind of that claim from a private party or AG or whatever, here's what we're doing, even though this is unknown at this point in time.
I mean, just in the overall, are the franchise guys
Oh, yeah.
on this?
Yeah. If you look, and I think if you talk to your DMS provider, they should be able to provide you some tools. And the question that you have to talk amongst yourself is how are we gonna capture this oral disclosure?
Well, then it's procedures. at that
Yeah, it's
point.
procedures, right? How are we gonna capture this oral disclosure? Are we gonna talk to a vendor that reports our closing? Or do we wanna make sure that like we have a written policy and then also train our staff? You cannot have a written policy and then not train your staff. That is not a defendable position because no one reads, right? This is the whole reason the car rule exists, is because consumers don't read. Why we're adding extra disclosures beyond me, because no one's gonna read them. But that is the point of this, and so you can't expect your staff to read a policy and not train them. That's both, if you're not good. So it's, what I think everyone here should do is start telling your vendors that you're using, say, what are you doing to help me comply? How can I do this? Do you offer video recording? Do you have a set policy and procedure?
When it comes to selling, is there a difference if you're selling to the person or if you're selling to like a business entity, you still have to follow all the same rules?
I would, to avoid error, just follow all the same rules because so many businesses, let me take that back. I'm a litigator, right? And I get these cases where they come in to buy it as a business, but then it turns into a personal product. Or they bought it as a personal product and now it's a business. It's too hard to really distinguish that. If you have like a wholesale shop where all you're doing is heavy duty equipment, talk to me afterwards. But if you're a dealer that sells to consumers and to businesses, just across the board, everything's equivalent.
Just to follow up on her question, with the Consumer Sales Practices Act, originally, I think that they didn't apply to businesses. I'm thinking of the old case, the Harold Salad Act, where they brought the Consumer Act on something and got tossed out because they were a commercial company.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I actually argued a case for the consumer. It was a dealer who bought it and then took the product because it didn't meet all the representations into a personal collector item. And so that one was actually a consumer, and we won on a consumer claim even though he bought it under his dealership name, but then it converted into a consumer use product. And so that's why I say it's really, really difficult, is they may come in and look like one thing, but are another. And that's where the CSPA is really, really wonky, I will tell you. Like, you can come in and buy it as a consumer, and then all you do is use it for Uber. I'm gonna argue all day long that's a commercial vehicle, and you don't get the CSPA. Okay?
Understandable.
But you don't know that, right? And so there are two different arguments under the CSPA of how you decide whether it's a consumer. And so one is like their intended use, what they tell you, and then how they actually use it. It's a complicated, like, three-part test.
But I guarantee you, because I had this happen to a dealer 15 years ago, 20 years ago, where we were defending an action. Yeah, they weren't sure what looked like a company sell, but they were all using the same documents, whether it was a retail sale or a consumer, or a commercial sale. And it had all over the place, retail sale. I guarantee you're probably not using separate documents for your commercial transactions as you are for retail transactions, you just do it one way.
Yeah, and you often see that box, right? It says personal, family, household, business, agriculture, a lot of your contact data. Y'all don't check it. I love you. I get so many of those. They bought it for a business, title of business, like you didn't check the dark box. And that's what the consumer attorney's hanging their hat on, you didn't check the box. So, and again, as you're trying hard and the amount of regulations that you have to do and run a business is really difficult, so I don't think it's worth parsing out, are they consumer or not. If you treat everyone like a consumer, you're gonna be in a good spot. All right, anything else? I know, right? But at least it's cocktail hour shortly. I'm done.
Anything else?
No,
Any other questions?
Here's the deal, yeah.
David?
So what I'm hearing is, if you're not a member of the association, and you don't have somebody to talk to, you might as well get out of business now.
Just out of curiosity, of the dealers that are in here, how many of you had ever heard of the car rule before today? How many of you haven't ever heard of any of this stuff? You can throw them into the just why I was curious, I mean, how many people are doing this? I mean,
That's why I say, if you even start your compliance journey, you're gonna be ahead of the pack.
Way ahead.
Yeah, which means the low-hanging fruit gets lower than you, right? And you want those guys to go out of business, you can stay in business.
It's gonna come whether we want it to or not.
I will do the plug, as everyone else has for the association. Your members, Wendy is a wealth of knowledge here. She can help you out. I can also help you out as part of your member benefit. We have some conversations with me, and that's not charged. There's a point it becomes a charge, and we'll talk about that, but we need to. But on top of that, you also get some auction fees paid for. I mean, it's a membership that pays for itself. So if you're not a member, go find Wendy, go find Babs, go find Kara.
That's specific form.
Let's talk after.
just want to remind everybody at 3:30 in the expo hall, they're doing all the drawings. So that's where all the new cards and the big cash.
The Yeti coolers, it looks like this year, there's a lot of Yeti coolers.
Yeah. So you've got 15 minutes to get there.
Yeah.
Expo hall closes at 4:15. If you're coming this evening, 5:30 for the cocktail hour, 6:30 for dinner. And everything's
Yep. I don't like that accent.